what actually happens during a panic attack. A psychotherapist explains you are somewhere ordinary, a supermarket, a meeting room, the seat of a car, and then, without warning, it begins. Your heart slams against your chest. Your breathing goes wrong. The world tilts slightly sideways. And somewhere beneath the physical chaos, a thought arrives with complete conviction. I think I might be dying. If you have experienced a panic attack, you know this thought, not as a passing worry, as a certainty, a cold, overwhelmingly real certainty that something catastrophic is happening in your body. I am Laima Matulioniene, licensed psychodynamic psychotherapist with over 20 years of clinical experience. And today I want to give you something more useful than reassurance. I want to give you the actual medical facts behind every terrifying symptom. Because reassurance fades, facts stay. Chapter 1: Your Survival System. Before we go through each symptom, I want you to understand something fundamental. A panic attack is not your body breaking down. It is your body's emergency response activating completely, powerfully, and without any genuine emergency to respond to. Here's the sequence. The moment your nervous system detects what it interprets as danger, and this can be triggered by a thought, a memory, or a bodily sensation, not only an external threat, it activates the sympathetic nervous system in milliseconds, faster than conscious thought. The adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol, and your body mobilizes every resource it has for one purpose only: survival. This system is not malfunctioning, it is extraordinary. It has been keeping human beings alive for hundreds of thousands of years. The problem in panic disorder is not the response itself. The problem is the trigger, and that distinction is everything. Chapter 2: The Racing Heart. Let us start with the symptom that frightens people most: the pounding, racing, sometimes irregular heartbeat, and the thought it almost always produces: I am having a heart attack. Here is what the medical evidence actually shows. Your heart is one of the densest, strongest muscles in your entire body. It has been beating without rest since before you were born. Clinical cardiologists confirm that a healthy heart can sustain 200 beats per minute for extended periods without sustaining any damage whatsoever. The panic attack peak is typically between 100 and 140 beats per minute. That is physiologically comparable to vigorous exercise. That is not a cardiac event. That is your heart protecting you. There is also a clinical distinction worth knowing. Heart attack pain typically radiates to the jaw, the arm, the neck, and worsens with physical exertion. Panic chest pain is localized, and it often begins at rest, triggered by an internal thought, not by physical activity. Two very different mechanisms, similar feeling. The racing heart is not your enemy, it is your body at its most powerful. Chapter 3: The breathing, the tightness in the chest, the feeling of a band squeezing around the ribs, the sense that you simply cannot get enough air, and the thought it generates almost immediately: I am going to suffocate. This belief is physiologically impossible, and I want to explain precisely why. Deep in your brainstem, entirely below the level of conscious thought, below the level of anxiety, below the reach of your frightened mind, there is a respiratory control center. This center monitors the oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in your blood continuously every second without pause. And it has one overriding priority: to keep you breathing. When oxygen levels drop, this center triggers a breathing reflex that is not optional. It is not under your voluntary control. Your anxious mind cannot override it. Even if you tried to hold your breath deliberately, this reflex would eventually force you to breathe. The tightness you feel in your chest during panic is not your airway closing, it is muscular tension. The intercostal muscles between your ribs contracting as part of the fight or flight preparation. It is deeply uncomfortable. It is not obstruction. And here is something that may surprise you. In most cases of panic, the problem is not too little breathing, it is too much. Panic typically involves breathing faster and more shallowly than the body needs. This creates too much oxygen and too little carbon dioxide in the blood. And it is this imbalance that produces the dizziness, the tingling in the fingers, the feeling of unreality. You are not starved of air. Your system is simply slightly out of balance. And it always corrects itself. Always. Chapter 4: The Dizziness and Unreality. When the world stops feeling real, when you feel detached from your own body, when familiar surroundings seem strange and dreamlike, when the thought arrives, what if I am losing my mind? This experience has a name: derealization and depersonalization, and it is among the most disturbing that panic can produce, precisely because it touches something fundamental: the fear of losing the self. Here is what is actually happening. During intense sympathetic nervous system activation, blood is redirected away from the outer surface of the brain, the cortex, where conscious processing and your sense of a familiar, continuous world happens, toward the muscles. This creates a temporary, minor, completely reversible alteration in how you perceive yourself and your surroundings. It is a physiological event. It has nothing to do with psychosis, nothing to do with developing serious mental illness, nothing to do with permanently losing your grip on reality. The derealization passes every single time, without exception. Chapter 5: Fainting. Many people who experience panic live with a specific and deeply distressing fear that they will faint in public, that their legs will give way, that they will collapse in front of others with no warning. Here is the physiological fact. Fainting occurs when blood pressure drops suddenly and significantly, temporarily reducing blood supply to the brain. During a panic attack, the opposite is happening. Adrenaline causes your heart rate to increase and your blood pressure to rise. Your body is in full activation mode. You are, during a panic attack, less likely to faint than when you are calm. The dizziness is real. It is caused by changes in blood flow and the breathing pattern changes we have already discussed. But dizziness and fainting are not the same thing. One is a sensation, the other is a physiological event that requires conditions that panic actively prevents. You will not faint. Chapter 6: The Fear of Fear Loop. Now I want to explain the mechanism that turns a single panic attack into panic disorder, because this is where everything changes. After a period of accumulated stress, and panic disorder almost never arrives without such a period, the amygdala becomes sensitized. The amygdala is your threat detection center, buried deep in the temporal lobe, whose entire purpose is to scan incoming information and sound the alarm when it detects something that matches a stored pattern of danger. In a sensitized state, the threshold for triggering that alarm drops. The smoke detector that was once calibrated to respond to fire now responds to burnt toast, and eventually it begins to respond to the smell of the kitchen at all. And so the sensitized nervous system begins to notice its own body, a slightly faster heartbeat after climbing stairs, a brief moment of dizziness when standing up quickly, a faint flutter in the chest after a strong coffee. Sensations that a non sensitized system would file as background noise now get flagged as potential threats. The mind asks its question, what if? That question, arriving at speed often below the level of conscious awareness, sends a signal of genuine emergency to the amygdala. More adrenaline is released, the sensations intensify, the what if deepens, the loop sustains itself. This is the fear of fear cycle, not madness, not weakness, a perfectly logical chain reaction in a system that was never designed to be questioned by the very mind it protects. Chapter 7: The Medical Verdict. I want to say something plainly and clearly because this may be the most important thing in this entire video. In the entire history of recorded medicine, no healthy person has ever died from a panic attack. Not one. The pounding heart cannot fail you. The breathlessness cannot suffocate you. The dizziness cannot drop you. The unreality cannot crack your mind. The panic attack is, at its most terrifying peak, 100% physically harmless. This is not consolation, this is fact. Chapter 8: Why knowing is not enough and what actually works. You may have heard some of this before. You may have been told by a doctor or a therapist that panic attacks cannot kill you. You may have understood this intellectually for months or years, and then the wave arrives, and the certainty returns, the fear. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is the architecture of the brain. The amygdala does not receive information from the prefrontal cortex, where your rational understanding lives, in the way that information flows the other direction. During high activation, the rational mind knows what it knows. The alarm system does not update its threat assessments based on that knowledge. It updates them based on direct experience. This is the central fact of recovery from panic disorder, and it cannot be sidestepped. The amygdala can be re-educated. Its threat assessments can be revised. Its threshold can be raised, but only through the accumulated weight of direct embodied experience. The experience of the sensation arising, the wave rising, and the catastrophe failing to occur. Again and again until the failure of the catastrophe to arrive becomes the new pattern. Until the alarm, tested against reality and found wrong, gradually quiets. Recovery from panic is not the absence of waves. It is the point at which the waves arrive. And not as a belief you are maintaining, but as something you have proved to yourself through direct experience, that they cannot harm you. That knowledge, earned through practice rather than given through reassurance, is what genuine freedom from panic feels like. Closing. If you want to go deeper into all of this, the complete neuroscience, the cognitive tools that interrupt the fear of fear loop, the somatic practices that speak directly to the nervous system, and the deeper emotional and psychodynamic roots of why panic takes the particular shape it does for you specifically, everything is in the course. Overcoming panic attacks, a complete audio course created by me, Laima Matulioniene, licensed psychodynamic psychotherapist and psychoanalyst with over 20 years of clinical experience, 21 recordings, over 7 hours of clinically grounded content, available at therapyreads.com. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching and for being willing to understand something that most people simply try to survive. That willingness is already the beginning of everything changing.